This is CBC News. Welcome to CBC Advent News. I'm Minister James Vinson, and tonight we continue our Advent mini-series. Last week, we discussed having an active, living hope in Jesus Christ. A hope that not only waits on a future new world, but works to make that new world a part of our present. Well, tonight, our first story, joy. Joy means happiness or pleasure. So it seems like this is one of our Advent virtues that would be easiest to wrap our heads around. It's something that everyone is looking for, to have more joy. But biblical joy means so much more than just happiness or pleasure. The author, C.S. Lewis, wrote in his 1955 book, Surprised by Joy, that biblical joy must be sharply distinguished from both happiness and pleasure. Joy, in my sense, has indeed one characteristic, and one only, in common with them: the fact that anyone who has experienced it will want it again, and I doubt whether anyone who has tasted it would ever, if both were in his power, exchange it for all the pleasures in the world. But then joy is never in our power, and pleasure often is. Biblical joy is the intense feeling of not only happiness and pleasure, but of gratitude, comfort, and longing, all rolled into one. Things big and small give us happiness or pleasure, but joy is an even greater emotion. Maybe the closest we can get to pure joy, outside of our relationship with God, is in a really great Christmas gift. Now that was some intense emotion. To further illustrate the point, I sent our own Mason Hubbard to find some children, and some children at heart, here at Covenant to ask them about the greatest gift they ever received. Face to face with Mace! Hubbard.
Thanks, James. And we're talking about joy, so we decided to ask all the kids what's the best Christmas gift they've ever got. What's the best Christmas gift you've ever got?
Shoes.
Shoes?
What kind of shoes? Pink ones. All right.
What's the best Christmas gift you've ever gotten?
The Switch.
Nintendo Switch. Nice.
What's your favorite game?
Legend of Zelda.
Woo! All right, thanks, man.
What's the best Christmas gift you've ever gotten?
I guess my condo.
Condo's nice. What's the best Christmas gift you've ever got?
Pajamas.
What kind of pajamas?
I forgot.
Sure got.
All right. Good job, Fiona. Thank you.
Good job, Fifi. What was your favorite Christmas gift you've ever gotten?
I got some hair extensions last year.
Hair extensions. Nice.
You need them again, it looks like.
What's the best Christmas gift you've ever gotten?
A science kit.
All right, a science kit.
What kind of science kit?
It had a marker that was invisible ink, and you had to do a special light on it to be able to see it.
Wow. Awesome.
What's the best Christmas gift you've ever had?
A microscope.
A microscope.
You got a microscope?
I'm getting one.
Now you gotta get him a microscope.
Now that is faith. Perfect. Is that all you want to say about your gifts?
I, the best gift I've ever gotten has been God and my family.
God and their family.
Oh, beautiful.
Lots of things brings us joy, but nothing like the gift of Jesus. Back to you, James.
Thank you, Mason. Receiving a gift gives us joy because not only are we happy to have the thing, but we are grateful for having been given it in the first place. Or, in my son's case, expecting to get it. Well, this melding of happiness and gratefulness is the heart of biblical joy, and it is why we celebrate joy during Advent. Christ's birth is the greatest gift humanity has ever received, and the happiness, comfort, and gratefulness that we have is because our God became a human, stepped into humanity's shoes, and lived and died for us. And that can be described as nothing short of pure joy. A joy that begins in receiving the gift, but grows ever stronger in our gratefulness for it. A complete joy only found in Christ Jesus. As it is written in the Gospel of John, ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. Now our main story tonight, love. Love is a word that does a lot of work in the English language. We can love many things. We can love our family. We can love our friends. We can love our pets. We can even love pizza. But obviously, we do not love all those things in the same way. Well, C.S. Lewis can help us again. He wrote a whole book about love called The Four Loves, and he discusses the types of love that he calls natural loves: empathy, friendship, and romance. And while all three are good, they can be soured and turned bad by jealousy, codependence, and lust. But the fourth love, Lewis holds to be the greatest of love, what he called the God love, or using the Greek word agape. Agape is an unconditional love, a love that does not change based on circumstances, a sacrificial love, a love that loves without expecting or needing that love returned. This selfless type of love is the one written about in the New Testament. It is the word that is used when the Apostle John says, God is love. It is a love that loves the sometimes unlovable, not for its own gain, but for the sole purpose of the love itself. It is not only how God loves, but it is at the very essence of his character. It is the love that Christians are called to have when Christ says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. Just like hope, Christian love is an active thing. We do not simply love with words, but we also love with our actions. It is what we do for the least among us, the sick, the poor, the homeless, the imprisoned, that shows not only our love, but the very character of God. To see what that looks like in practice and to inspire us here at Covenant, I talked with Leanor Ortega Till from Denver, Colorado. She is an associate chaplain at the Denver's Women's Correctional Facility, and I asked her about her work and how God's love has led her on her own faith journey and how it can and should lead ours. Hey everybody, I am here with Leanor Ortega Till, who is going to share a little bit with us on the subject of love. And full disclosure, I am not only a financial supporter of hers, but also she plays saxophone in my favorite band ever. So I had to get that out front.
Nice.
I want to ask you real quick, what does it mean to be a chaplain? Many people might have heard this word before, but it can mean different things in different contexts. So what is it in your context at the Denver Women's Correctional Facility?
Yeah, good question. So, in fact, the mantra for a chaplain at the prison is listen, listen, love, love.
Oh, okay.
And so it's interesting that you asked that because we do make love a verb. And so, love for us as chaplains is a lot of listening, a lot of openness, creating sacred space in the prison, and allowing a person to have dignity, allowing a person to meet us without judgment, without having to overshare,
Right.
without, asking anything of them. We are pretty much just there to listen and to pray and to study if they want to or not, just to create a space. And the love part, honestly, is I take my cues from others.
Mm.
So if they want to bust open the Bible, we do. If they want me to bring my guitar and do honky tonk worship songs, we do that.
Awesome.
If they want to, spill their guts, we can do that. I, as a chaplain, am there to listen. And a lot of the times what we're finding is that people that don't even identify as followers of Jesus need a listening ear, need a
Right.
safe space. And so part of that love is just to say, hey, I'm here. I'm not going to judge. If you want to be you, I can be, a beautiful mirror for you to see your beautiful soul. And that's kind of how I've found love to work in the prison.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So what drew you to this ministry? What made you decide to go into this?
Right. So it wasn't ever a plan. And I think that's kind of how God works,
Yeah, I
as
hear
you
you.
may know.
Yeah.
So I met a woman at a coffee shop and she was talking about how she did prison ministry. And at the time I had two little kids, very young. And she said, you should do prison ministry. And I said, well, I would love to. I really would. But now is not a good season. And so I took her phone number in my phone.
Mm.
And 7 years later, I called her.
Wow.
And she remembered me. And I said, do you remember talking about prison ministry? And she said, yes. And I said, I'm ready. Kids are in full-time school. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so that was about 7 years ago. I started volunteering about once a month.
Okay.
And then the past 3 years, I've been really thinking seriously about becoming a chaplain because I learned one thing in the prison system is that a lot of the chaplains are they're aging out, like they're older,
Right.
and it's a lot of work. And a lot of the chaplains in the Denver Women's Prison are in their 70s and 80s.
Wow.
And so me being in my 40s, they need people that are younger that are going to commit
Yeah.
because not everybody can make it there as often as they want to. And also there's part of the relevancy. We're dealing with people that are more like me
Right.
and live and grew up in a world like me. And so I think that was what I started to see is if I don't do it, I'm going to miss out.
Right.
I'm going to miss out. Not they're going to miss out. I'm going to miss out on a really cool opportunity. And I guess I do call it a career, even though part of it, like you mentioned, is I have to raise support to do this because what's fascinating is the prison wants people there. They have faith and citizens programs, but
Right.
they don't pay us because, that's kind of a conflict of interest to pay faith workers.
Right. Right.
Right. But they understand that our churches and our communities will support us financially. And so they encourage us to go out and find support so that we can make this our career.
Yeah. And that's really when I first heard about you getting into that work, it made sense to me. Just from being a fan of you and the band and knowing that you guys kind of reach out to the different and that was
Right.
always my appeal. And this kind of ministry, like you said, it's a need that's there, and it's so great that you that you fulfill it. Now, our message in our video today is about agape and the idea of biblical love being a love that is not only unconditional but also sacrificial.
Yes.
It's love that sometimes comes with a cost. So I wonder what sacrifices have you had to make to follow this calling and this line of work?
I think the biggest one is emotional because unlike a pastor, I don't take my work home. They're not calling me on the phone. They're not meeting up for coffee. They're not hanging out in my life, which I've done pastoral work before,
Right.
but they don't go away emotionally from me.
Mm.
So when I get in my car after being at the prison and having a, conversation with a woman who doesn't get to hug her children, doesn't get to hug her mother. I start driving, and the drive from the facility to my house is west, which I live in Colorado, and I see the mountains.
Yeah.
And I almost always instinctively start to feel very heavy emotionally, thinking, I've gone further in the last 10 minutes than most of these women have in the past 7 to 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
And that emotional weight is the weight that I bear sacrificially, but also it is, again, my joy to do it, because I don't think there were times in my life where I could have done it. I think that, chaplain work and pastoral work is a calling,
Hmm.
and it's something where you recognize you can't change people and you are not always going to be liked, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
for sure.
you have to be the bad guy, and sometimes you just have to be that space that reminds people, okay, I'm going to hold you to something, and I don't always like that feeling,
Right.
but I am innately a big sister. Like, I just am created that way.
Yeah.
And so it comes with sacrifice of speaking up sometimes. Like, if we say we want to be Christ-like, which
Right.
we do, sometimes we have to ruffle a little bit of feathers. And doing it in love and finding out those conversations and having mentors that say, oh, don't say it that way. You
Yeah.
can do a little better. You can do a little better in love to say something, but we can hold people to a place of growth.
Right. Right. Very true. Well, lastly, and most importantly, I want to ask you, how can we as a congregation pray for you? How can we support you? I know you work through Urban Sky. If you want to share a little bit about that, that would be great. How can we help you do this work of
Okay.
love?
So Urban Sky is fascinating, and I started working there in 2016. And what it is a conglomerate of faith entrepreneurs. So we all have different job descriptions. Some people are counseling people that were in the sex trade. Some people are writing curriculum. Some people are, everybody's doing different things. Some people have house churches. Some people are church planting. I'm a chaplain at the women's prison.
Right.
And so we all raise support through this Christian nonprofit. And it's Urban Sky with an E on the end,
Yep.
.org. And you can read several different biographies of people and see what they're up to. And as far as me, I not only serve at the women's prison, I've decided when I left Scum of the Earth Church was to create sacred spaces in just typical situations. So we also do clothing and food banks at an apartment church. I also do premarital counseling for couples, parenting counseling, and also chapel at an assisted living facility.
Awesome.
So all kinds of fun things that are not church, but bringing church to them.
Right.
Because they're not going to they don't go to church. And especially at the chapel, they love it. I mean, not at the chapel, at the assisted living.
Right.
Creating chapel for them, they're like, we do the old songs, the old hymnals.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So
That's
your
great.
church can be praying for me. If anybody wants to individually as a family or themselves receive my monthly newsletter, my ministry updates, it's always got interesting stories of what's going on. They can be praying for me. They can also give tax deductible donations, but mostly I think if they want to find somebody in their community also, I mean, supporting me is awesome, but there's people in your community that are doing it. Or if you're in a place where you can be a tutor or host a coat drive in your own church, or find what's happening in your community, because there are little hustlers everywhere that are creating sacred spaces outside of church doors.
For sure. For sure. Thank you so much again for the encouragement and for sharing what God is doing in your life and helping that inform what he's calling us to do.
Thank you so much for having me. Be blessed.
Thanks. Love and joy, like hope, are active and living things for a Christian, and we cannot be afraid to look for them outside of the church walls. Whenever there is someone who is hungry, sick, imprisoned, or simply lonely, it is a chance for us to activate our love, and in doing so, we will find the joy-filled gratefulness of sharing in God's love. But we know there are barriers that seek to steal our joy and stop our love. The world is not always a joyful and loving place. It is often cruel, chaotic, and in turmoil. So how do we have living hope, living joy, and living love in a world of death? Well, we will discuss that next week in our final report when we discuss the peace of God. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless.